All right. Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. Today I've got a very special guest with me, Vince Pitstick, who is the founder and CEO of Vidal Coaching. And today Vince is going to talk with us about hormones, birth control, fertility, and all that fun womanhood stuff. So, hey, Vince, and welcome to the show.
Hello, Megan. How are you? You doing good?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Excited to be here.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining.
Yeah.
I
Hopefully, people hang on tight. They should be up for a ride. If people want to learn something, this would be one to stick around for.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, and go ahead and grab your pen and paper because I feel like you're about to drop a lot of information.
Yeah, that's right. A little bit of a roller coaster. Let's go.
Let's go. It's gonna be packed, which is gonna be awesome. Well, Vince, if you would just share first for anyone who maybe doesn't know you or follow you, like tell us a little bit about your story. I feel like everyone who's in like the nutrition or coaching space or anything like that, they have their own story of how they got there. So, like,
Yeah.
just if you
Well,
would share your beginnings.
sure. Yeah. So to pre-qualify, I guess for the audience a little bit. My story started with when I was struck with a rare disease at 7. Try to give some high notes here. Struck with a rare disease at 7. Started mental, emotional, then started turning physical. So a lot of diagnoses. I'm a bit of a dropout from the Western medical system. Tried to throw drugs at me. Traveled the United States looking for nutrition, holistic therapies at a very early age. Kind of came out of that with a different understanding of how the body actually works and the limitations of the Western medical system. So between chemical, basically turned into what was chemical exposure to the farm chemicals that we were using on the farm, mixed with a lot of trauma in the home. So you put all that together, you got a recipe for a pretty sick kid. So,
Mm.
that was started my life, my certification by life, which is really what most people need to have real wisdom in this area when we talk about fitness nutrition or functional nutrition. And if anybody doesn't know, functional just means root cause. So you're looking deeper than just the symptom. Instead of saying high blood pressure is the root cause of high blood pressure, it's what are the root issues that are making blood pressure high. A little bit different, right? So so but from there, some higher education, learning nutrition, things like that. But what really kind of did it for me was I developed my own program as a personal trainer that involved nutrition training, holistic medicine services, blood work, and I did all this. I started this, this is like 18 years ago. So people were like, "What the hell is this?" This is right when like vitamin D and fish oil started becoming like a
Yeah.
thing. People didn't know what that was. And I started drawing in a lot of bigger and bigger names. And from there, I ended up getting poached by a global, think of it as a supplement like pharmaceutical company, but a green pharmacy, if you will, called Metagenics, where they did all the research in Gig Harbor, Washington. And then I studied in California under some of the most amazing practitioners in the world, Einsteins of our time, Dr. Jeffrey Bland. He's the founder of IFM, which is the Institute of Functional Medicine. And again, he's considered the godfather of all things functional medicine, lifestyle medicine. And so I learned this whole other world, not just fitness nutrition, because I was also into, I was a bodybuilding coach at the time, competitor coach, then also just working weight loss, nutrition strategies, general health strategies. So then when I learned everything of functional medicine, it blew my mind. And then they sent me out and I became a functional medicine rep. So I would come help set practices up, teach them protocols, teach their staff, set up cash pay services, like all these different things, right? And so I was the guy behind the guy for a good 6 years. So majority of some of the big names in medicine that wanted to start applying holistic services, nutrition services, supplements, and all the different things, started to integrate their service, whether it be a big medical practice, a network, or a sole proprietor, or whatever it was, and of every type of medicine. So everything from Reiki to NP, ND, DO, RN, you name the initials. I would be behind them, helping them build their practices. And so I got this really insane view that no one gets of medicine and how everybody has this 90-degree angle of a 360-degree problem.
Mm.
And so, for example, if somebody comes in and they have stomach pain, gained a bunch of weight, maybe they have rheumatoid arthritis or something like that. You go to a chiropractor, it's not a coincidence that every treatment's going to involve an adjustment. It's not a
Mhm.
coincidence if you go to a hormone specialist, every treatment's going to involve a hormone. And that's because they've got their one thing that they do.
Yeah.
But the problem is in a complex system like the human body that has 11 systems, that when the body gets off, multiple systems are having problems. That if you don't have a multi system approach, you are going to leave people without the truth or the result, which is what happens to most people. It's like the person I just described. What are they going to do? Going to go find a doctor, find a trainer, find a nutritionist, find a counselor. It's not happening. Okay. The whole world isn't Cleveland Clinic. And because of it, the world is getting sick very fast.
Yeah.
By 2030, 7 out of 10 people in the United States will have some form of severe lifestyle disease that will significantly impair their life.
It's
Every
crazy.
known disease in the world in the known world for the most part is growing at all-time rates. And particularly infertility, autoimmunity, obesity, you name it, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, all preventable, majority of them lifestyle related conditions. But yet nobody seems to have the solution. And it's because nobody actually wants to set up a program that has all the solutions in one. And that's the problem with Western medicine. A bunch of people got together and said, here's how we're going to organize this. There's 11 systems of the body. You get a system, and you get a system, and you get a system, and you get a system. And guess
Yeah.
what? You stay in your damn system. Okay. So
Stay in your lane.
you got the gastroenterologist, GI doc, you stay in the gut, right?
Yeah.
With thyroid, you got guy, endocrinologist in this case, you stay with the thyroid, right? But those two are intimately tied together. You
Right.
really should talk about both when you're talking about them, right? Or
Yeah.
any number, cardiovascular, right? And then looking at the immune system. There are so many different ties that happen because of inflammation and the way the body works. The body doesn't work on an island on different systems. You have multiple systems that work together to make a certain functions happen, like metabolism, right? Like
Yeah.
energy, right? Like levels of pain. There are multiple systems that are working together that are creating that symptom. And if
Yeah.
you try to work a one system approach for a symptom, you're never going to solve the problem, which is why we see in the world today people getting sick at all-time rates.
And why we are where we are. Well, and I love that you went down that hole because like in talking about it being synergistically, because even today, like we're probably gonna talk a little bit more like hormone related stuff, but I feel like
Yeah.
especially like people get tunnel vision on that. So I love that you like started it off that way of like it's all synergistic though. Like we might
Yeah, if you think sex hormones are only a product of the endocrine system, you would be highly mistaken. And how
right,
you'd solve the problem of hormones isn't just working on the endocrine system.
right,
Okay. This is
right.
so we have to have a first an understanding of how we solve problems,
So
right?
good.
Right. So because the problem solving complex systems is a lot different than one variable decision making. Let me give you a perfect example. I hope I don't get you in trouble here, but let's talk about COVID. Right.
I love it. Let's
So
go.
what really smart people did is said we're going to reduce it to one variable, and if we stop this variable, all will be well. So they were trying to stop the spread,
Hmm.
right? And the way that they tried to do that was keep everybody inside. They didn't talk anything about nutrition, supplementation. They didn't talk about anything. And then what happened from keeping people inside is the amount of depression, drug addiction, right? The suppressed immunity from lack of activity, from being out, because we find out that working out or being active increases your immunity by up to 20%. So we ended up causing more problems in many ways than we did good on the upfront. So when you make one variable decision making, you're inevitably going to be wrong because while that might be logical, it's not wise,
Yeah.
right? And there's a big difference between someone having knowledge and someone having wisdom,
Oh, that's so good.
right?
That's
So they're
the
totally
other
different
thing.
things, right? So the challenge is that when you go in and go, oh, I'm tired, and you go to the endocrinologist and they go, oh, your thyroid's low. Here, just take this thyroid medicine. I can tell you one thing, you're already wrong. You're already
Mhm.
wrong about how you solved it because you walked into a doctor's office that has a one system approach to problem solving complex systems. That's not how you problem solve.
Right.
How you problem solve is not like, how do I cover this thing up and just get them better now? It's what caused this
Mm,
and what are the multiple variables that cause this. Let's fix those, because if I don't, you're just going to pop up with another symptom and another symptom. And I'm going to cause a secondary problem if I just try to cover it up. Right.
yes.
And we'll be able to
Yep.
talk about how thyroid affects sex hormones later, because there is no woman on planet Earth that takes thyroid medicine for more than 3 to 5 years that doesn't have sex hormone imbalance after.
Mm.
Because if you
Well,
understand you understand the endocrine system works, you'll understand that it's a thermostat for the production of other hormones. And if you just jack one hormone and don't worry about the rest of them and don't fix the inputs of what was going on, you're just going to have more chaos downstream.
yeah. If you fix one thing, but you're not looking at the whole picture, you're probably causing other things to
Yeah.
go awry or go off.
Right.
And to what you said about, I kind of word it differently, but you said wisdom versus knowledge versus wisdom. And I think you do a really good job. And that's why I'm really excited for this conversation of blending those two, of having the knowledge and the wisdom. Like I always say, like the science versus application. Like
Yeah.
you need the science, but it's also the application. There's some things that even like working with clients or whatever, like to be true because it works, even if there's not necessarily a study there. But then also to have the science piece, like you do a really good job of blending those two.
Science can only give you your first protocol. After you apply the first stimulus to the body, everything changes because the
Yeah,
body adjusts to what you're doing. Okay.
yeah,
So that's why people don't understand. You cannot just follow science, because while we need to look to it for a reference as a guide, there are so many biomechanical things that are shifting in a dynamic system like the body that
mm,
cannot be tracked in 2 variables or 3 variables. And so therefore you will need the application of that knowledge, which is wisdom, right? And
yes,
so that's why we talk about that. Like my favorite quote is probably like, um, you know, when you talk about my favorite kind of quote around this is knowing that tomato is a fruit, but knowing not to put it in a fruit salad,
yes.
right? So
It's
knowledge
so
is
good.
knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad,
Yeah,
right?
that is the
I think
best
I think anyone
analogy.
can relate to that, because in their own lives too. This is not access to only. It's only like, this is not like Gnostic information, meaning that like it's only information reserved for the few. It's like use your God given right
Mhm.
intuition and logic about how
Yes.
white life works in general. It will also work very much in the same way over in nutrition. So you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I actually was just recording a podcast earlier this week about, as far as just like trying to eat clean and, but it can be so overwhelming for people, but then also using your intuition. And I always say one thing for me is like falling back to like, how did our, ancestors eat? Like if it's just all overwhelming, it's like, just use your, like, does this make sense? Does this like use your
Mhm.
intuition more too? Like
Yeah. Common
connecting.
sense, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Common sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what I've spent the rest of my years doing is building a health network that no one would need to leave. We have our own doctors, we've got our nutritionists, trainers. Someone comes into our program, everything's included, everything to the emotional group support work, mindset work, nervous system work. People don't realize it, but the thing that's actually going to get you away from where you are to where you want to be, you'd almost need a therapist, nutritionist, trainer, and doctor. Well, where are you going to find that? And that's what I created, Vital Coaching, which is actually the Vital Enterprises, which is now like the largest one-on-one health coaching company in the United States.
I was looking through y'all's website. I was like, it's y'all are like very all encompassing with those
Yeah.
things.
And
Definitely.
that's, but I mean, even just the standard coach works multiple systems. A coach is
Yeah.
helping you probably get focusing on your sleep and stress management, but is also then working your nutrition, but is also working on, activity, right? And then, giving you some supplements that are helping certain systems of the body, and so you're
So good.
working a multi-system program when you're working with a coach versus going into a doctor and getting a thyroid medicine or getting, a laxative for your gut, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Those are one tool solutions that rarely ever truly work and never create restoration and full resiliency to bring you back to where you want to be. So then you just keep springing more links as you go through life.
It's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Well, and I would love to tap into your knowledge and wisdom on birth control.
Yeah.
So would you even just like explain, and like for most, just so you know, too, most people listening to my podcast are probably not new to the fitness nutrition space, but they're probably tracking macros or they're probably, a little bit more,
Yeah.
they're like looking for a little bit more in depth, but still can also talk to us like a sixth grader too,
Yeah.
but if you could
Yeah.
just explain the different types of birth control and how
So,
they can
so
like impact weight and muscle building.
yeah. So again, going back to, let me explain that worked with some of the biggest hormone clinics in the country that worked on high level, whether it was really hard cases or OB clinics that worked general health and wellness with females. And so a lot of my work early on centered around women. And so I worked with probably 30 of the top hormone specialists in the country. And I can tell you that they all have their different little take on what's going on, but
Mhm.
almost none of them ever thought about nutrition, your
Mhm.
emotional state, your nervous system. All these things have an impact on your hormones downstream, whether you know it or not. And that's where, again, it's challenging to talk about all the different layers in one podcast. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the hormones themselves and just understand that hormones are a messenger that basically tell your body to do something. Okay. But in order for a message to work correctly, you need you need someone who's communicating the message and someone who's listening to the message.
Mm.
And we often only think about the communication and not the listening. And what that means is your cells, the amount of inflammation in your body, the amount of emotional duress that you have, the amount of oxidative stress that may be in your life from, again, lack of sleep, emotions, and then toxic lifestyle, so smoking, drinking, whatever, those things interfere with your cell's ability to hear the message. And so the
Mm.
first thing that I've got that should be hopefully a little groundbreaking for the people watching this is that if the first thing you think you need to do to feel better is to raise your hormone levels, you would be wrong. The first thing you need to do is increase your sensitivity to hormones. That
Mm.
means listen better. So when I say that, I mean also listen to your body. Like what's going on in your environment right now? Like, are you stuck in chaos? Are you worried about the thing that's always going to go wrong instead of being grateful for the things that are right? With women, you cannot separate their emotional state with their
Mm-mm.
hormonal state
Nope.
because women's bodies are so much more hormonally complex than men, and they have a little bit less resiliency in their, I mean, we'll call it, so they call it allostatic load. And what that means is allostasis is the process of creating homeostasis and flux. And the greater the allostatic load on the body, meaning the greater the stress on the body, right? The harder the body has to work to maintain stasis.
Mhm.
In women, and particularly the more ectomorphic you become, so that means tinier, longer, thinner bones, usually don't have weight issues. The more that you go from endomorphic, which is more, bigger boned, square body type, heavier set, and something that I want people to know that is something we've discovered working with our, again, I've got about 100 coaches working for multiple businesses and then my medical team. So we watch this stuff and we've had 55,000 case studies. So if anybody's had enough sample size to see this stuff really play out, it's us, right?
That's awesome.
So what people need to realize is that your body is listening to your thoughts, your nervous system is, and it has a big impact on your endocrine system. The endocrine system is all the glands that make hormones,
Mm.
basically. So if I'm stuck in fear, worry, doubt, all of those things, I get stuck in my masculine. So I'm super nervous. I'm not sleeping, which is sympathetic dominance, sympathetic nervous system. I'm in fight or flight because I'm worrying about things big or small that I cannot control. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm having difficult relationships, right? And the problem is because why? Why does that matter, Vince? Are women less superior to men because their hormones get off easier with stress? No. Women are more powerful so that with their thoughts change their hormones faster. So, like, if
Mm.
women don't get enough oxytocin, for example, which is the love hormone, is more important in women than it is in men. That is a neurologic hormone that directly impacts cortisol and progesterone. So, what is oxytocin's like giving someone a big hug or petting your fur baby or
Yes.
going on a date with your significant other or, sitting down with a friend and being heard. like that you just get
Mm.
to, you're just getting it off your chest. You're not looking for a solution, right?
Go hug your husbands.
Right.
Nice.
So that's oxytocin, which then helps combat and lower cortisol, which then doesn't steal from progesterone then. So see, so okay, so progesterone's really, if you go from pregnenolone and DHEA, those are like your, DHEA is more of a neurological precursor to your androgens, your male hormones. Then pregnenolone also will make some DHEA, but primarily makes progesterone and then trickles down into the rest of the hormones. So you have to understand it goes from progesterone to testosterone, or what's called androstenedione, and then that all metabolizes into estrogen. So it's a big plinko bucket. Like if you ever played plinko, where you drop
Hmm.
the quarter and it bounces down.
Yeah.
And so what people need to know is that where the hormones, when you make them, where they wind up, has everything to do with your emotional state, how much you're sleeping, what foods you're eating, right? How much you're drinking, or how much you're not eating. And it really, really absolutely starts though with good emotional sobriety, being in control
Mm.
of your, your conscious thoughts and where emotions are coming from, having healthy relationships, all of that. But we're so chaos addicted today
Yes.
because of dopamine, because of when we're
Yes.
young, because of sugar, because of social media, because of the news and everything going on, too many stimulants, that we
Hmm.
stay in our masculine sympathetic nervous system, and we're running around like crazy people, and internally there's chaos, so we don't ever go inside, we never get to rest. And when you don't get to rest, I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter what your weight is, a lot of times your hormones are going to get way the hell off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, that also turns into environmental and other habits. So I start either under eating dramatically, and then break bad and way overeat. And then so I'm yo-yoing in my diet. I'm eating very poorly nutritious food, so there's not much nutrient density.
Mm.
And in for women, in oftentimes in the plant world, plant seed, the gathering, like hunter and gatherer, there are a lot of things that help produce hormones and balance hormones, right? Also fats, right?
Hmm.
Um, and while protein is really important, I would say for muscle and all of that, it's not as necessary for hormone health. You would
Hmm.
say the other agents are typically better for that.
Yep.
And so what happens is now you're eating chaotically. You're not getting enough phytonutrients. You're not getting enough antioxidants. You're not getting things that stimulate hormone production, whether it's like seeds or soy or like whatever. There's a lot of different things that help with this, fermented foods, other stuff like that. And so then you just started getting really imbalanced hormones that get way off. And so then there's other things that we do to our bodies that will impair metabolism, right? So now when I say metabolism, it's the conversion from one to another, right?
Hmm.
And so the more inflammation rises, the poorer your metabolism, and then hormones can get stuck, levels can get heavy. We tend to go more estrogen dominant. So that means the progesterone low is the estrogen's high. So we're carrying more water, we're more sluggish, we're more emotional. Or you're the fitness goer, and what you've learned is that if I actually restrict calories and then just really work out all the time, I actually don't have much emotional fluctuation because I have zero hormones,
Because I have zero hormones. That's it.
right? So you want to be
Yeah.
like a guy, right? And you're like just kind of like chill all the time or whatever, or consistent. Just that people don't realize, but a form of antidepressant or anti-anxiety is just, well, more antidepressant is just going to zero body fat and just
Kill your
training
hormones.
all the time and not eating. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't
That's
suggest that for anyone, by the
yeah.
way.
Not recommending,
Yeah,
but
hormones help you make your life richer. They make life's highs really high, and they make you um, experience the in total range of what life has to offer. It
yeah.
changes everything about how you think
Yes.
about yourself, feel about yourself, look at the world, your choice in sexual partners, everything. And people don't realize how much that's being attacked or under assault every single day. And so because
And
we
I mean
don't have a,
that's
go ahead.
that's one thing with with birth control. I know with so many women that I was only on birth control for a few years, but I know so many women who they literally, aren't attracted to or are attracted to their partner more after coming off of it, or no sex drive versus having a sex drive again. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So it really, everybody comes in, and your audience won't see this, but I'm putting on my blue blockers, right?
There you go. Nice.
So the lens upon which I see the world, I'm wearing these glasses right now, depends heavily on how I take care of myself with my hormonal balance and which interacts with my neurotransmitters. So if I don't know and my hormones get way off, then I'm not seeing things clearly, taking my glasses off, and I'm driving a little drunk. I'm a little emotionally unsober, is what I like to call it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I start making stupid decisions, or I start getting scatterbrained, or I start getting anxious, or like whatever is going on. And I'm not going to recognize that it's my hormones because no one's ever talked to me about hormones before. I'm just going to assume it's me being weird and me. And so that's why getting an idea about your hormone health early on in life, I think, is super important.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to not look at our hormones until they're a problem.
Yeah,
And I
that's
would
so true.
highly suggest against that.
Yeah.
And starting at usually, by at least 16, if you've been menstruating since 12, I think you should get your first look at your hormones. I know I will with my kids, um, because we want to get an idea of where you're sitting in and what we can do to like keep you healthy in that way, because of how much of an impact that it has on you. And then most people at 16 aren't going to do it because they're just going to go on birth control,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And birth control for all of its benefits, and I'm in support of women's rights to reproductive health and making the choice that they want to make. There is a really downside, dark side to birth control, hormonal birth control, that is not being appropriately or adequately represented in every doctor's office in the country when making a decision about something that's going to have potentially an effect on you the rest of your life. And that's
Yeah.
something that's not discussed enough, which is what I end up having to fix in my office. So we see about 1,000 people at any one time at Vital Coaching alone. And I would say that 30% of them are from birth control injury. And if you added birth
Mm.
control and diet injury from chronic dieting or getting on the wrong diet for too long, it probably represents 80% of the work that we do.
That
You
was just
know?
so crazy. And
Yeah.
even like to your point, like, it's like your choice, but have the informed consent of like, okay, what are the repercussions of it?
Yeah.
What's like the positive or the dark side of
Yeah, well,
it?
and even now, Moderna and all the pharmaceutical companies are having to come out and talk about the downside of the vaccines. Not that
Mhm.
they weren't. I'm happy if that worked out for you and what your choices are in relationship to that. Everyone has the right to choose, but we didn't really have the right to choose up front because we were being
Yeah.
told mistruths about, oh, there's only upside. Whenever a medical system or anybody goes, this is just the best thing ever, and
I'm
it's
like,
going to do all this stuff, just know, coming back to common sense,
yeah.
nothing in life is free. I don't need to listen to an expert tell me 9 hours about why something's so good to still know, well, okay, I get that, but nothing's free.
Yeah.
So what's the pay? And I don't mean cash,
Hmm.
right? And so, a lot of, between everything between DVTs, blood clots, autoimmune disorders, pill-induced PCOS, again, psychological issues, relationship issues, metabolism issues, weight gain, nausea, you name it. But a lot of times they don't happen till later. So when you look at a 12-week or even a 6-month study on birth control, you're not going to see it. It's a lifetime of using birth control. This
Yes.
is why it's such a disingenuous argument to say, oh, birth controls don't cause any problems. They don't have effing studies on switching birth controls left and right, taking them for 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, don't insult my intelligence by telling me, well, in this 6-week study, everything looked really good. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. Like,
Anything
I
can
know
work
better.
well for 6 weeks.
Right. Anything can work well for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And so, and again, this is not to scare people away from hormonal birth control. There are birth controls that are just fine to take for a little while if that's what your choice is. Okay.
Would you talk a
We,
little bit about that too, of which ones, like as far as if your goal is like muscle building? I've heard you
yeah.
talk about some of
So,
that.
and again, we teach all birth control and how to coach with it, and also how to work people out of challenges at our university. If anybody wants to go a little deeper here, but Metabolic Mentor University, shameless plug. The thing that you people should know is there's three generations of birth control. Generation one was where you got the mini pill. Okay. This is where you've got, so all birth controls typically are based around a progestin science. That means it's a synthetic progestin. So it's a synthetic progesterone. Okay.
Mhm.
So what they do is they take different chemicals from things, they make it somewhat look like progesterone, and then they give you that. The reason that they do that is because they don't give you enough, and the balance of hormones is off, where the type of hormone that it is might still serve as a hormone, but they will give you a little bit less, so it doesn't kick off your firing of your luteinizing hormone and your follicular stimulating hormone. So that way you don't actually release an egg, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so then you can either, depending on the pill that you take, if there's a sugar pill in it for 7 days or something, you might have a fake bleed, basically, where you're
Mhm.
you're getting rid of hormone, but you're not actually eliminating, let's say, an egg that was in your uterus or anything like that, right?
Right.
And so uh, the most birth controls are based on the progestin that is in them. Okay. So first generation, northindrone was the big one. Northindrone, which is where low estrogen, stuff kind of comes from. And then there's also, it's usually paired with an ethinyl estradiol. So that all the estrogens that are paired are all ethinyl estradiol. And again, that is a synthetic estrogen. And what's crazy to me is that people are so afraid of estrogen in life. Like, everyone's so afraid of estrogen,
Yeah.
but yet everyone is taking estrogen of
Yeah.
of 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 a childbearing age.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to worry about it then, but all of a sudden, estrogen that's been in your body, that's been in humankind since the beginning of time, all of a sudden it's this big scary thing,
Hmm.
right? And
That's a
this
good
is why
point.
we have to come back to, it's not the hormone, it's your body's metabolism of it based on the environment that you're giving it and some of your genetic predispositions mixed with it, right?
Yep.
So estrogen is really good for you. It's why your hair is nice. It's why your skin is nice. It's why you like, there's times that you look at your husband and want to jump his bones. There's
Yeah.
like there's
It's good.
estrogen is half the reason you enjoy life and you don't know it. And ask any woman in menopause if that's true or not,
Yeah.
because you'll miss it when you don't have it.
Right.
Right. And so this is why we need to reposition our thought process on estrogen. We need to treat it more delicately and with more seriousness about how our body detoxes it. What does it need to have healthy estrogen? What does it mean to have healthy hormones? How do we do this so that we get all the best of estrogen and none of the worst?
Yeah.
Right.
That's so good. Yep.
Right. And that's the way to look at it. And one of the reasons that men are having so many that are in the bodybuilding world that are having strokes, heart attacks, all that, is because they're zeroing their estrogen out. It's the
Mm.
number one reason is anti-estrogens, right? So estrogen does so many good things for you that we cannot demonize it. That would be a mistake, right? One
Yeah.
variable decision making, estrogen is bad. No, that's not true. That's so far from the truth. We have to unwind some of these narratives. Now,
Yeah. Well, I think we also hear like you hear about estrogen dominance so much. So it's just like this negative connotation, kind of the same thing as cortisol. You're like,
yeah,
cortisol
but
is actually good too, but it's like the form you're getting it, how your body's using it,
yeah,
and all
but
of that.
why does the body get estrogen dominant? Because at the bottom of the Plinko board is estrogen.
Yeah.
So if you're too stressed the hell out, you're on a bunch of energy drinks, you're not eating correctly, you're smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, it's going to stop some production at top and push things down to the bottom. So
Yeah.
it's not estrogen's fault, right? It doesn't make estrogen bad. And then how
Mm-mm.
you detox estrogen, your body needs certain nutrients to help it do that at a better rate, right? To get rid of it so that you don't get clogged up in the process, right? Hormones
Got it.
have a strong effect on metabolic rate. We need to know that too. So inadequate levels of testosterone decrease your metabolic rate. That's been proven in many studies, right?
Yep.
Um, it will change how you look on the surface. Now, if your hormones just drop a little bit, that's not going to change your metabolic rate. But if you get deficient or you go really low, it certainly will. And it changes your look. You know, hormones do everything from how much muscle you're going to hold to how much fat you're going to store to how much water you keep on your subcutaneous tissue, so how bloated you look, right? All of that, that I can make someone look dramatically different, not change a pound on their body and just change their hormones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's one thing actually I heard in some of your content. You talked about, forms of birth control as far as being more pro muscle building versus not. And I was on Nexplanon, which is more because that turns from progestin to estrogen, right?
Let's continue on the journey of so
And I
so
was like, oh, shoot, if I
first
had known that, I would have been like, nope.
first generation progestins are the way that things metabolize, they can be androgen or estrogen leaning. So that means that when the protein or the hormone breaks down, the lipid hormone in this case, because sex hormones are lipid hormones, when it breaks down, it's more likely to turn into either a testosterone androgen or a estrogen. So the first generation pills, believe it or not, were probably one of our best. And now we just keep making it worse every time we try to make something else, it seems like. But mixed with a little bit of estradiol, and you can pick your amount. That's why on the side of a pill case, you'll see 1 in 15 or 1 in 10, 1 in 20, 1 in 30. That's looking at the ratio of milligrams progestin to micrograms ethinyl estradiol. Most people, I don't think, have any idea what that means. So it's like, oh, I've got low estrin FE 120. Okay, great. You know, right? What does the FE even mean? I ask people, I don't know. It's ferrous fumarate. They sometimes would add iron pills to last 7 days, right? So that you would bleed.
Yeah.
So the second generation, they get a little bit more. So first generation is slightly androgenic, meaning that it's more likely to metabolize into an androgen. Second generation, we're very androgenic. This is called levonorgestrel. This is where you get your IUDs. So like your Mirena, Kylena, right? And they're most of them are progesterone only. Okay. So that's where now it's got to trickle down and make estrogen, right? But it's very androgenic leaning. So that's why women tend to get more cystic acne with them. On the other hand, though, those are the ones that help build the most muscle. Now, I would also argue that generation 1 is just fine too. Now, other things come out in generation 2, right? And in terms of different hormones, but a lot of times most women are only taking levonorgestrel if they're taking a generation 2. So I'll leave it at that and keep it simple. Generation 3 is where it starts to get really weird. Okay. You got desonogestrel. You've got so many different, you've got your northendione, and multiple. Northendione is a generation 2 and 3. All of these, you've got Nexplanon. So this is where you get your implant, right? And the Nexplanon is, if I remember correctly, hold on, etinogestrel. So etinogestrel, the further down the line they get with making these progestins, right, the more complications they start to create. So Nexplanon's one of the worst, right? Desonogestrel is an anti-estrogen, right? So all of the third generation that you would take for acne or hair, those are the ones most likely to cause a DVT, deep vein thromboidosis, heart attack, stroke, weight gain, brain fog, nausea. But they do great for skin. So you can be bloated and have great skin, right? But those will zero out your
Yay.
androgens. They're very anti-androgenic.
Okay.
So then they start to hurt your muscle mass over time because they zero out your androgens in many ways.
Yeah. So I'm like,
Desonogestrel is an anti-androgen.
if I had known that, I would have never have done the next one. I'd have been like, nope, what, anything else?
Right.
Give
And
me.
Nexplanon, just so you know, and I want you to think about this, Megan, let me ask you a simple question. Does everybody have the same metabolic rate?
No.
Oh, they don't? Okay. Okay, so help me understand this. If I'm going to stick a plastic in your body, right? And then I'm
Yeah.
assuming your metabolic rate is at a certain rate of metabolizing plastic because the whole concept of Nexplanon is it's a plastic insert that melts away slowly in your body, releasing small amounts of hormone every single day. How do you think that's going to work out for most people, considering that no one has the same metabolic rate?
It's super variable.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Which is why you get so many different random symptoms with that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I try to tell people if you can, you know, start with, my recommendation is that you keep your hormones natural and you practice more family planning and safe sex where if you must have unprotected sex or you're worried that something's going to be a slip up, I really have got to tell you they have revolutionized the world of the diaphragm. The diaphragm
Mm.
pops in easily, right? A little bit of spermicide on it. You can have sex anywhere you want to, quickly. It's not like it's a big setup. Very easy to insert it. They measure them and make them exactly your size now. You can easily carry it in your purse. This is why you don't have to mess with your sex hormones, and there'll be a reason why. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. And it's
Ah,
just as safe and effective, and it's on your terms, right? It's on your
nice. Yeah.
terms. If you're not going to do that, I still am a fan of copper IUD, even though it can make heavier bleeding at first. Copper IUD. And then if that's not going to work, and then you have to go with hormonal based birth controls for some reason, where you don't want to do there's, now you've got, temperature testing. You got lots of things that you could do. If you don't want to do any of that, then you really need to stick to, in my opinion, um, for your best physique health, protect your metabolism. You need to be looking for a generation one pill that's like a 1 in 20, which would be like 1 milligram
Okay.
progestin, which is the one I like is Northindrone, right?
Okay.
Northindrone's the one I like, not Norgestimate. That's what a lot of people end up getting, and that one has side effects, more increased blood clotting. Northindrone and ethinyl
Mm.
estradiol, usually a 1 in
Okay.
20, usually a 1
Okay.
in 20. Okay.
Well, and that's a part of the reason because I would have probably gone the IUD route when I was looking at birth control. Now I do natural cycles, take your basal body temp. It actually is
Yeah.
super easy. Um, but I have a not that you care, but a bicornuate or heart-shaped uterus, so they couldn't put the IUD in because there wasn't anywhere for it to go. So, and anyway, I was like, well, then stick something in my arm. I just don't want to have to take birth
Yeah, I
control.
get it.
But again, if I had known the other side effects, I would not have
Yeah.
chosen that
Yeah, and then
that route.
if people don't want to do a pill, then the next step is the IUD, and I'd recommend either the Skyla or the Kylena.
Okay.
Mirena's got a little too much hormone in it. It's got 52 milligrams total.
Okay.
And then, over 5 years, like with the Mirena, the other thing that people don't realize with inserts like that, like implants or with IUDs, is that they get weaker over time. So by year 3.5, you're very little hormone on these things, which is why I like a shorter time frame. So I prefer like the Kylena middle ground. Let me check the life of I think
Okay, Lena.
that one's 5 years. Yes. So that one's 5 years. And then Skyla is 3 years. And I know it's painful to get them in and out. I understand this. I would not wish that on anyone. But again, you want to go a little bit lower hormone. I prefer the Skyla. And then, get it redone every, that's shorter time frame. Or go with the Kylena, go 3 years, or Skyla and go 2 years. And the reason is you don't want your hormones getting too low.
Mm.
That's what women do not realize. The thing that you should be afraid of more than anything for long-term health issues is simulating menopause too early in your life, period. Okay?
Mm.
Because it kicks in menopausal genes, then your hormones go too low, then when they come up, the only birth control that they've really proven, and I know it's more than this, that have proven to cause autoimmune disease is the Depot shot.
Mm.
So the Depot shot zeroed out people's estrogen,
Oof.
causing autoimmune disease, infertility, all kinds of stuff. So they've taken it off the market. Unless you've got some cancer stuff, they typically don't give Depot.
Mm.
And what we learned from that is if that a woman lives too long, and that's why fitness ladies out there that want to be real lean all the time, you got to be careful because if you're simulating perimenopause early, you're going to kick in a whole host of immunological issues, health issues later in life, your bone thinning. Estrogen has a lot to do with osteoblast turnover, so the integrity of your bones. So that's why osteopenia sets in for fitness women sometimes sooner, even though they've got the
Mm,
working out that offsets it. So you just want to be aware that like if I want to be lean all the time, like super lean, then I probably want to do a little bit of hormone replacement or make sure that I eat foods that help induce some hormones or a lot of phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens will mimic estrogen activity at the receptor site with lower hormones. So if you're going to be real low hormone because you're staying super lean and you don't want to take hormones to supplement, you better be taking a bunch of phytoestrogens.
mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I know we're like coming up on time here
Yeah.
soon. I did want to ask you too about your stance on birth control and its effect on fertility and even just the fertility industry in general and what little bit of time that we have.
Yeah.
Because I, it's like a pandemic of infertility. And I think this all goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning with it being like very full body, synergistic, everything. But would love like your takes on just the fertility industry and, maybe some more natural
Here's your
solutions.
one liner. The fertility industry is a lie. It's a ripoff. It's taking advantage of people. It's unethical. It's unprincipled. And majority of the people in the fertility industry are criminals and crooks. Period. I know it because I was in the industry. And I
Mm,
can tell you unequivocally that they know that they're not giving you everything you need to be successful for your pregnancy. They are setting you up like a used car salesman. So when you go to the dealership, they're gonna take you to some like nice car. It's not gonna have all the features. It's not gonna be the newest of the new, nicest of the nice. They're gonna be like, oh, this is a nice car. You get 24 miles a gallon, FY, XYZ, and you're gonna be talking about it, and then that car dealer is gonna go, okay, well, but by the way, this is nice, but what do you think about this? And they'll take you to the XLS edition that has all the features, has all the nice things, grips the road. It's so cool. The colors is great because they want you to see the starch difference and they want to get you to upsell into the larger package. Fertility is no different. They're going to mislead you into IUI. They're not going to give you nutrition. They're not going to talk stress. They're not going to talk about genetics. They're not going to talk about anything. They're going to pump you full of hormones because they know statistical probabilities you have less than a 13% chance of getting pregnant. They're going to do it to you 2 or 3 times. They're only going to take a little bit of money. So anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 per pop, innocent little bit of money. Then when it doesn't work, they're going to go, you know what, Mrs. Jones? IVF, give me that 40K,
mm,
right? It's a setup. They know they could do more to help people get pregnant. They don't. 1/3 of my practice is fertility. And I can tell you right now that we have an 85% success rate on all women who have failed
mm,
IVF or IUI because they're not being given the appropriate information to become pregnant. And it's done for the purposes of economics. It is not
mm.
done in their interest. And that's a fact because every single fertility doctor I know knows there's more to fertility than just slapping them with hormones. And yet still, talk to anyone. They get no support, nothing,
Mm.
because they don't want to, because they don't want to risk you getting pregnant and missing out on their 40K upsell. And
So
that's
it's
the
just the
reality of it.
hormones versus like the full like nutrition, lifestyle,
Right.
stress look.
It
Yeah.
is a complete hustle preying on people at their weakest. Shame on the whole industry. Shame.
Shame. Unethical. Well, and that's I've actually I'm like 15 weeks pregnant right now as we're recording this. And we,
Congratulations.
thank you. And but we had a miscarriage prior and then we had tried about a year prior for a year before that pregnancy. And anyway, I considered the IVF and I'm like, I'm living a very healthy lifestyle. And I know for so many women and people, it's like IVF is the why they have children,
Mhm.
today is because of doing it. What would be, and we don't, really have time, but it's like, is it really looking at
IVF isn't the reason that they got
that full
pregnant. I'm going to tell
body?
you right now, majority of people could have got pregnant with without IVF, right? But what they did is they were able to get pregnant by and also give the doctor 40K. And now listen, I understand that this is a sensitive topic, and I'm so happy for whoever got pregnant that's listening to this that used these tools. Okay.
Yeah.
because IVF just is right around anywhere from 25 to like 30%, right? Right. So even though whoever's listening to this, it was successful for you,
Yeah.
for about seven of your friends, it wasn't, right?
Mm,
So for every, they're going to get it what? One out of four, one out of five times, right? What about those other four or five people? What about them? And then they're
yeah.
just sent off, right? Thinking that they can't get pregnant when it's just majority of the time that is completely untrue. There's just the recipe wasn't right in their environment where their hormone
Mm,
status was inflammation, emotional health. Now you're too worried about it, so it's not happening. There's so many things that go into actually getting pregnant and taking a pregnancy to full term that while again, I'm very happy whoever got pregnant, hell yes, right? But I
yeah.
need you to understand that you weren't supported the way that you should have been going into it.
Yeah. And to your point, even with the success stories, oftentimes there's multiple attempts at, at that getting that success
That's right.
story, not to
I
mention.
want
Yeah.
give me my 100K,
Yeah.
something that your body really has a birthright to do in the first place.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Well, and I think it's so cool. I've had some women go through my coaching program who like have been either doing IVF and then get pregnant as we're working on other lifestyle and nutrition, parts. So I'm like, was it the IVF or was it the nutrition lifestyle? But
Exactly.
then
We've had
also others who,
53. We've
yeah,
had last year we did 53. 53 vital, we call them vital babies. Um,
pregnancies.
yeah,
Oh,
people that could
that's
not get
awesome.
pregnant with IUI or IVF.
That's
53.
so awesome.
So this is why when people go, who are you to say something like this?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I have the medical teams, we have the experience, we have 18 years of knowledge in this area. We've got great teams all around. We know what we're talking about. So when I tell you the industry is ripping you off, they're ripping you off.
Wisdom and knowledge,
Yeah.
wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. Well, thank you so much for your time
Yes,
and
sure.
covering some of these like harder topics too.
Mhm.
Where can everyone find you? What's the best way to
Yeah,
get?
I mean, if they're in the pursuit of knowledge or truth, you can check me out a couple different places. I'd say Instagram. Go to Vince underscore Pitstick. That's Pit and Stick Australian deodorant. Pretty straightforward. And or go to my YouTube Metabolic Mentor on YouTube. Or again,
Okay.
if you are someone that wants to get certified in how to fix these things for people, if you want to change lives or change your own life, and you just want to learn more, I have an entire university with catalogs upon catalogs of the research, the
Cool.
trainings, the videos that would turn you around in 12 weeks. Be able to help probably almost anybody in the world. It's called Metabolic Mentor University. I've got some of the best trainers over there, dietitians, NPs, and
So cool.
we're changing the world one person at a time.
So cool. That's so awesome. I will put that in the show notes too, so you
Thank you.
guys can easily access that. But thank you again so much
Yeah,
for your time.
absolutely. Been great.